All right, everybody. Hello, hello. Time to have one of those little chats because it seems that the Black Lives Matter narrative is getting more and more ridiculous every single day. And here we have a stunning case, Breonna Taylor, where actually every single piece of information that was provided us through the media was an absolute lie. Just an absolute lie. Actually nothing that they told us about this case was true. If you have been following this case from the beginning, we have been told that Breonna was an EMT who was living life the right way, that the police officers showed up accidentally to the wrong door and shot her while she was asleep. All of it, a lie. Not even one part of it's true. Not one piece of that was true. First and foremost, Breonna Taylor was not an EMT. She had been in the past, but she had to step away from being an EMT because a car that she had rented all the way back in 2016 was involved in a homicide that was being investigated. A homicide which involved her boyfriend, the one that was a drug dealer, her ex-boyfriend at the time that she has been killed, Jamarcus Glover. This is all about a very intricate drug ring that the police officers had been following for years in this town that Breonna Taylor was unfortunately at the center of. Now, I'm going to say a sentence that nobody is going to care about because the media, when you tell the truth, always ignores this sentence. Breonna Taylor did not deserve to die. It's common sense. She was mixed up with the wrong people. It's unfortunate that she's dead. You know, this is one of those instances when you're growing up and your parents tell you not to hang out with the wrong people because you can end up in the wrong circumstances and you can get yourself into trouble. This is something that we learn when we're children, when you become a teenager, when your parents are trying to guide you and make sure that you don't hang out with the wrong people or fall into the wrong crowd, as we like to say. But for whatever reason, this is no longer being held as a norm for Black America. It doesn't matter if we're hanging in the wrong crowd. It doesn't matter if we're actively helping our boyfriends move drugs, which is what Breonna Taylor was actually doing, okay? This is the truth. You can head and you can read all of the police investigative reports. It doesn't matter that the police had an actual warrant to be at her place, that they had been trailing her, that her name was on the warrant when they showed up at her place. It was not the wrong address. Everything the media told you was a lie. The police officers had every right to be at her property. They had been monitoring that property for weeks. They had a poll camera watching every single thing that group of people did, because they were involved in meth, crack cocaine, they were moving drugs, and Jamarcus Glover was the person that was at the center of it, okay? That's the truth. You were told that the police officer shot her while she was asleep. No, she was standing in a hallway, right? You were told that she had nothing to do with anything and it was all an accident. It was not an accident, okay? She was knee deep in drugs. You can actually log on and read the transcripts from when her ex-boyfriend, Jamarcus Glover, got arrested back in 2018. They actually recorded their jail conversations between her and the entire network of the people that were moving drugs through the neighborhood, okay? He was asking her to do things in his place. She was involved, and she was also made it very clear that she was worried because she loved him so much that he was going to end up in serious trouble one day. Unfortunately, she didn't worry enough about herself and what trouble she was going to be in one day. This is a case that comes down to personal responsibility. Of course, the most important part about this case, which no one is talking about, is that they fired first. They shot a police officer, and I shouldn't say they, I should say the guy that she was with at the time, Kenneth Walker, fired and shot a police officer before hiding behind her and running to the back of the house. And she then took all of the bullets the returning bullets from the police officer as they were standing in a hallway side by side next to each other. So the police come, they knock on the door, okay? And they say police. Why do we know that's true? Because Kenneth Walker himself verified that him and Breonna Taylor heard the knock at the door, and the neighbors came outside to speak to the police officers. The neighbors have verified that the police officer said it's the police, okay? Now, you hear people who have white guilt, and people, doesn't matter. How do they know it was the police? I don't know. Shoot first and ask questions later. I wouldn't know it was the police if you knock and said the police. Okay, would you grab your gun and fire at them? Wouldn't you look out the window, check the peephole to see what's going on before the police officers barge into your house, which they have a right to do because they have a warrant on them? Do you understand that Breonna Taylor is dead? That is sad. It is the fault of Kenneth Walker for firing at a police officer. Black Lives Matter started at the principle that unarmed Black Americans were being shot and killed for no reason by police officers. We have now dramatically shifted the narrative to Black Lives Matter, which means even when a Black American is armed, shoots a police officer, and the police officer has a warrant to arrest and to inspect that property and take drugs, still the Black American is somehow a victim. That is pointedly ridiculous. And let me also tell you something else. It is the bigotry of low expectations. Stop believing. If you are a white person, you've been defending this and you've been wearing a Breonna Taylor t-shirt and you've been demanding justice for Breonna, then you should be demanding that her boyfriend serves time in prison for firing at a police officer. You should not be demanding a police officer's figurative head on a stick, okay? These are the people that protect and serve the community. You keep saying Black Lives Matter. Did any of the Black lives that were having crack cocaine moved into their neighborhood by this whole organization of criminals matter to you at all? Did you know maybe somebody overdosed on the drugs that this group was selling? Did that matter to you at all? Did any of that? The Black lives only matter when the narrative that you hope, that you wake up every day and you hope that you're going to see is that police officers are killing Black people for no reason. This case is an unfortunate one. It is not a case of police brutality. It is not a case that has anything to do with race, okay? You could have put a white person, you could have put a meth lab in there. If police went to serve a warrant and it was a bunch of white kids selling meth and they knocked on the door and the meth kids shot at them, the police would have shot back. It's called protecting your life because police officers have families to go home to. What more do you want police officers to do? They investigated. They had a warrant. They were at the right residence. Breonna Taylor's name was on the warrant. Jamarcus Glover's name was on the warrant. They did everything the right way. They went to the court, got the warrant, knocked on the door and announced themselves, even though they didn't have to. They could have no-knocked it. They could have barged on the door and gone in the way that the FBI raided Roger Stone's house. Okay? Did Roger Stone, by the way, shoot at FBI raid officers when they swarmed his household? Did he go, oh, well, I didn't know who it was, so I just shot first and asked questions later? No, he didn't do that. He didn't do that. So it is entirely possible that when police officers knock to serve your warrant and bang down your door, that you don't shoot at a police officer and then hide behind your girlfriend and allow her to take the bullets. Why are we not having that conversation about personal responsibility? Oh, I know, because we always have to infantilize Black America. So this is no longer, movement is no longer about saving Black lives. No, it's about treating Black people like toddlers. It's no longer about equality. It's about exceptions. It's no longer about equality. It's about entitlements, right? You want Black people to be entitled to things that no one else in America are going to be entitled about. That's what Black Lives Matter activists are about, right? Beyonce, I want justice for Breonna Taylor. I called the Attorney General and told him I want justice. Oh, because you sang single ladies, you can make a phone call and tell them not to do their job, and you want to make sure police officers serve time for what? For defending their lives when they're fired at? What is wrong with you guys? What kind of a world do we live in when we can no longer distinguish between right and wrong? Do you realize how scary that is? That we have people that are actively defending criminals every single day. There has not been a single instance this year that Black Lives Matter has jumped on where the Black person was not involved in some level of criminality. Not George Floyd, who was on fentanyl, ingested fentanyl before his arrest, was obviously, if you have now read the labs, they are saying he died of a drug overdose and there was actually no injury sustained to his neck despite watching the case, right? A man that had methamphetamine and fentanyl and was trying to use counterfeit bills. Was he a pure victim? Absolutely not. Jacob Blake, he was a guy who had a warrant out for his arrest for digitally raping a Black woman and telling her that she smelled like she had been with someone else, right? According to the warrant for his arrest. Does anybody care about that Black woman? No, because it's not about Black lives, right? But Jacob Blake, he got shot in the back as he was going to grab a knife and was running from police officers. So who cares? He's a victim because he got killed by police officers. Rayshard Brooks physically beats police officers, grabs their taser and shoots at them in Atlanta, and oh my God, watch the city burn, because this guy, they should have just let him go. They should have just let Rayshard Brooks leave with the taser, because it doesn't really matter. They could have gotten him later, because the job of a police officer is to make sure that the black man gets away safely with a weapon and is allowed into a neighborhood. Not that the black man should be apprehended immediately because he's a risk to the rest of the community. A job for a police officer is to protect and serve the community, not to protect and serve the criminals. Yes, it would be nice if criminals didn't fight back when they were being apprehended. It would be nice. In a perfect world, all of these warrants and all of these arrests would go off without a hitch, right? But a level of that taking place, if we actually want to aspire to that perfect arrest scenario, then it takes two to tango. You have to listen to instructions from police officers. Is this the result of the black community having such a high rate of father absences? I'm just trying to understand. I can't wrap my head around not listening to instructions and not listening to authority and running away and beating and trying to hit a police officer. It boggles my mind. Like, are we just not being raised to think that we have to listen to any rules? And is that breakdown of family also transpiring because we have a culture of celebrities like LeBron James who are pretending that these people are all victims and innocent, and people like Beyonce writing letters to attorney generals who will not acknowledge that we are playing a role in this? Philando Castile in 2016 was an honest-to-God victim. We all remember watching that tape. It was sad. It was devastating. The police officer thought he was going to pull for a gun when in reality he was pulling for his wallet. That is an example of a very sad case, an example of a true victim. I have not seen any cases this year that Black Lives Matter has presented where I cannot pinpoint the exact thing that the person did that was wrong. Breonna Taylor was a victim of her own bad choices and circumstances, okay? She was a victim of her boyfriend and her boyfriend's bad choices and circumstances. This is what happens when you hang out with drug dealers, people that have guns on them, people that their instinct is to shoot first. This is what happens, okay? So spare me your white guilt. Do me a favor and spare me your white guilt. If you are a black person, spare me your Black Lives Matter mantra and think for a second about the society that you are helping to create and build right now. If you are an American, have some decency to start defending our police officers and our law enforcement officers who get up every day and suit up and do the right thing by trying to remove criminals from the street. This poor police officer was shot at, and now he's going to have to watch all of Louisville burn because of a narrative that somehow it was unjust. When he got shot, it was unjust somehow because he's a police officer and was doing the right thing, that he's evil. I'm just getting so sick of this. Black Lives Matter, in my opinion, is a terrorist organization. It is sowing division in this country and it is collecting billions in the process, and nobody knows where the billions of dollars is going. It is certainly not going to help rebuild black communities. In fact, you are going to see that tonight when another black community burns because of what happened. Because Black Lives Matter is in there burning down a community once again where black people live, where black people work, where law-abiding black people like myself and the majority of the black community have to sit here and suffer this BS narrative. That is all I wanted to say tonight. Thank you guys for listening to my rant.